Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we're doing Shark Tank, where we pitch cards to our fellow sharks and try to convince them to invest in our secret hot tech that no one has ever thought of. Join with me, straight from prom, is Phil. Filling in for Krim.
What's with the suit?
Dressed to impress.
You know, you gotta
That's
look
for the job you want. professional. That's the Shark Tank right here. Whatever. Nah, I got it. The prom thing kills me. What am I supposed to say to this?
Does Germany even have prom, or is that just a United
No, but I get it. I'm just not a suit guy. I have one suit. I wear it at weddings.
I actually have to buy a wedding
look like
I'm actually
going to
the same.
prom.
Probably
gonna
better
be
known
the
as
night
Saffron
of
Olives.
Hey, I love Shark
How you
Tank. It's
doing?
one of my favorite episodes, and I got some good ones to sell you this time. So
Tomer, Budget Commander, how you doing?
Good. I like Phil's suit. Good job, Phil.
Very
you.
professional. Very professional.
Ooh.
it is, yeah.
We,
I like
we
the
need
boat
Krim
one.
here. Krim, when he puts on the suit, it's like all business.
Oh, that's gotta look
I don't
sick,
know if
yeah.
I've ever seen Krim in a suit except for like his Pokemon character suit, which I'm assuming not what you're
I
talking
think
about.
that's what we're talking.
That's business casual at PG Goldfish, okay? I'm the Codfather Richard, and today we're going to do Shark Tank, one of my favorite episodes, and we have a juicy announcement coming up right after our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by Ultimate Guard, premium protection for your trading cards. All the gaming accessories we use on this channel are brought to you by Ultimate Guard, so check out their deck boxes, sleeves, and playmats over at ultimateguard.com, and also Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. You can skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. You can use their curated service to send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. You can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed. Get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. So thank you to our sponsors, and it's time for the Ultimate Guard comment of the week. Last week, we talked about, or we reacted to Wizards' new bracket system. So, top comment. And boy, the comment section was wild last week. Spars Snips. Tomer cooked hard this episode. Hard, capital HARD. His composure and points were the best I've seen out of him. Keep it up, dude.
Wow, good
Yep.
for you, Tomer.
Thanks.
One of the good
Well
ones.
done.
Yeah, woo.
The
I'm
people's
sure
champ.
the-
Feel vindicated from the
The
comment
viewers
section
were
there.
very
They're
content with
optimistic
our
like
takes
me.
as well.
All right, now time for the juicy gossip of the week. Big announcement: Commander Clash podcast. The YouTube comments have won. I am retiring. I am retiring from the podcast, effective immediately. Wait, not immediately. Effective next week. So
Are you
starting
happy
next week,
comment section?
We're just
Phil?
gonna walk off. Yeah.
Phil will be. I'll just walk off. Phil will be filling in full time. So I will be retiring from Commander Clash podcast, and also the season of Commander Clash is changing. So Krim is coming back, and I will be stepping aside because I have given up pushing O'Hare Axel. I am taking O'Hare Axel, and we are going to the promised land.
I thought you were gonna say the prom.
We're going to the prom. On a serious note, I'm still here. I'll fill in when Phil's not here. But I'll be working more on the website stuff. So I'll be taking a step back from content and working on the back end behind the scenes. But you'll still see me around on the other podcasts, and then I'll be filling in on Clash and Clash podcasts when Phil can't make it. Yeah, so that is out of the way.
I gotta say something though.
Why is Richard getting? Is Richard getting fired? Is Richard getting?
No.
Fired? Remember, like every single time we have like a
I
just
got
a
a call from
change in the
HR.
lineup. Yeah.
So I gotta
Like
say
a fire.
something because I was a viewer of this podcast way before I made Magic content, and I get you viewers. I'm one of you. I would much rather still be one of the viewers, but now I gotta be on the podcast, and Richard is gone. So I fully admit that this is not good news. But now you have a direct connection from the viewers, which is me, into the podcast. So let me know in the comments. I'm gonna read all the comments. Let me know if you have good ideas. You say, "Ooh, we
You gotta
gotta
read
do
all the
this."
comments. Good luck.
One of you is on here
We need,
now.
there's gonna be a void to fill in terms of hot takes.
And,
Yeah, what are your
really,
hot
Caretaker's talent. Stocks going up.
We gotta
as
have
we
some
speak.
new hot
Songs.
takes. Yeah.
All right, but before I leave you all, I'm gonna drop some gems for you guys to as my parting gift. Okay, sharks. Now, the economy is not doing well. Who can afford eggs? What is the price of eggs? Do eggs even exist anymore? I've heard that our deck lists are out of touch with reality, averaging $600, $800. Maybe you have one too many game changers in your list. Maybe you're pushing past 3, and you need a new free counterspell. And I have a card that's like less than $1, and it is available in Old Border foil fill. Unfortunately, it costs $20, but it's still a bargain compared to Fierce. This card is Thwart. Now, 2 blue. It's an instant. It says counter target spell, but you may return 3 islands you control to their owner's hand instead of paying Thwart's mana cost. So it's a free counter spell, but you return 3 islands. Now, if you follow the Richard school of thought, you don't counterspell until you win, okay? Like it doesn't matter the cost of the counterspell. Like if someone plays a One Ring, you don't counter it, okay? You just let it go, and you counter when you want to win. Thwart is effectively a free counterspell, but here's the difference, right? We have Pact of Negation. Pact of Negation is also a free counterspell, but it costs you 5 on your next upkeep if you lived to make it there. Usually not relevant because you've won the game. But on the off chance that you haven't won the game, you're bouncing 3 lands, 3 islands. It doesn't say basic island. What's the best island in all of Magic the Gathering?
Mystical
Yeah,
Sanctuary.
the Mystic
Sanctuary. So your Thwart bounces the Mystic Sanctuary. You play the Mystic Sanctuary. You get another card out of your graveyard. And, if you so wish, you could build the most cope forbid you ever want by looping Mystic Sanctuary and Thwart. But more importantly, you can get back that Ondu inversion or something, right? And you can use it for value. So a free counterspell you can run. I think it's better than Fierce. I don't run Fierce, but if you want to run Fierce 2 game changers, you can shove in Thwart, right? And Pact of Negation. Pull the Phil special, like answer this. Clever Concealment, Thwart, Pact of Negation, Fierce. Did you do it, right? So less than $1, right? And I play it on non-budget weeks now, right? I initially found it on budget weeks and some other theme I was trying to force through a combo, but I'm like, actually, it's a legitimate choice between Pact and Thwart, right? Now I have a good choice between the two. And I play this with the Richard mana base, right? So where I struggle to generate 3 islands, right? The card is still worth it, right? Because Mystic Sanctuary, Thwart Mystic Sanctuary is an insane combo that lets you, I don't know, just play the game of Magic based on your mana base, right? So
my question to you though, Richard, question number 1, there's a few when it comes to Thwart, but question number 1, how are you going to have enough islands to keep turning on Mystic Sanctuary if you're bouncing 3 of them to Thwart repeatedly? I see you struggling to have 3 islands on turn 12 when you have 15 lands.
Yep.
Is it really realistic that you're going to bounce 3 and still have enough to turn on Mystic Sanctuary?
Yeah, because Mystic needs
okay, so if you actually want to use Mystic Sanctuary, you most likely need to be mono blue. Okay. Right? Or you need to play the Crim special or the Tomer special of the terrible tap dual lands. But realistically in blue you can do it, right? But in the other colors it's going to be harder, but you could do it 2 turns later, right? You're not going to instantly loop it, but you can just slowly accrue the value.
Okay.
Let's see how many islands you ran on mono blue.
Ooh, the receipts.
I see 9.
9 over 9.
No,
Catching 'em out.
10 counting the Mystic Sanctuary.
Count to 3
You know what?
with this.
This is actually fun because you run a lot of fetches.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you fetch, I think it's fine.
I'm Team Thwart. I've ran it since the dawn of time in Edric and my Moonfolk, but I don't actually run it outside of that, and I do agree that it should be run more. If you have like enough islands to support it, I think it's better than Pact of Negation, because you can actually just hard cast it if you need to. I'm not on the Richard philosophy though of like you only need to cast a counterspell to win, because like here's an easy example. Let's say you just have a good board state and somebody wraths. I don't want to thwart the wrath, and keeping that board state around is going to help you win the game usually if it's a good board state. So like that's where I don't like Pact of Negation, where it's like, okay, I can save my board from a wrath, but then I have to take off my next turn to do so. This one you can at least you have the option to hard cast it, which makes it infinitely better. You just need to make sure I have islands on the battlefield.
Also hard casting Pact of Negation for 5 mana.
It's a lot.
I mean,
of
I
mana to
actually
keep up.
played this on Clash and I hard casted it because the turn I wanted to use it, I wasn't going for game. I think I was trying to force through a wrath or something, and I just hard casted it. But I don't know, like it's not. So if you're out of land drops, it's not that bad, right? Because you're just missing 2 + 1 mana, right? It's 3 mana. Like if you count the land drops you're making again. So it's not horrendous.
It's kind of cheaper than Pact in the late game, assume you don't make any more land drops. I'm actually kind of convinced that this is a budget replacement for Pact, because Richard got me on Pact. You only want to Pact if your life depends on it. I always have to Pact to preserve my board, and then it still happens, but whatever. But technically, you should only use it once and then win. I remember playing Thwart in Tatiyova, where I had extra land drops.
If you play
and got
Civic,
value out of it,
Thwart
that's
stocks go way
obviously
up.
pretty good. Yeah.
Like
old border. If I have an old border foil of this somehow, I would play it to be
Isn't this like
overforms?
Isn't this like way worse than Pact though? If you aren't winning the game, like that's my concern. I kind of what Tomer was saying. Like, yes, I think it's a nice budget replacement for Pact of Negation, but if you got to cast this fairly, isn't it like way worse than Pact of Negation? Because Pact, at least like you pay 5 the next turn, like it sucks. But isn't bouncing 3 lands back to your hand like way worse if you do get stuck where you're not winning the game that turn? That would be my concern. Also, you didn't mention any surveyor scopes. I thought the pitch was going to be look at me turning on my surveyor scope.
Yes.
So I'm a little disappointed.
That's a good one.
Sick.
That would be the best
Turn
content
3.
moment. Like someone like opened the ways or something for 6, and you just thwart it out of nowhere and snap up a surveyor scope. I didn't think about that, Seth. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Gets even better.
Imagine turn 3, you bounce all your 3 lands, but you play the surveyor scope on turn 2,
and just get them all back.
crack the scope, and make all the land drops. That's crazy.
I mean, that just makes that's a land tax. Like, you just drew 3 lands essentially, right? Because you didn't really make it anywhere.
Oh yeah, you kind of.
So let's not get too excited about that
Sharks.
prospect.
Are we in on this?
Are we
say
in?
I will. I will play it
I like
more. I will play it more. You sold me on trying to get more.
I'll invest a little. I'll invest a little in combo decks. Like if I
Invest
play in a
50
combo
cents
deck,
more. Can you invest
50 cents for 80% of your Thwart corporation?
If I don't want
please,
an
Richard.
offer, you can't refuse.
You get 10% of all my future wins. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Deal.
yeah.
In
Deal.
perpetuity.
Yeah, I like it. I
like it?
maybe just only not in 3-color decks or something, and
Sick
I
attack.
probably play Pact over it. But I can respect it. So
You play Pact? You like old border foils?
if I have the old border foil, I'm gonna play it. So if I'm not gonna pay
Like, look,
20
an
bucks
old
for it,
border
but
foil is
somehow I
$20.
find
A
it.
Pact of Negation is like $13 or something for the cheapest.
We're just gonna
So you can
slip
go
an old
go
border
old border
foil.
foil.
And just as a little bribe and be like,
I was
"Hey,
actually
foil?"
I thought it was gonna be cheap.
Yeah,
I'm like, who
cool.
plays Thwart? It's like a 50-cent card, right? Then I looked at the foil, like, why is it $20?
Yeah.
I'm so sad.
All right, I think you won
All
us
right.
over, Richard.
All right, Seth.
All right. So do I have
You're giving me 25 cents. You got to earn back.
All right.
Got to earn
Well,
back the money.
That's perfect, because I am also going to sell you on a card that is at its best in mono blue. So one of the biggest challenges that Commander deck builders face is trying to ramp in mono blue. Sure, you can spam a bunch of mana rocks and then just pray that there's no farewell or the F word or a Vandalblast or Bane of Progress. But what if there's a better way to ramp in blue? A way to ramp in blue that puts actual lands onto the battlefield and ignores artifact hate. That's what I'm selling you today in Mitotic Manipulation. So Mitotic Manipulation is a 3-mana sorcery that lets you look at the top 7 cards of your library and you put one of those cards on the battlefield if it has the same name as a permanent. So the idea is pretty simple, right? You play an island on your first few turns, and then you use Mitotic Manipulation as like a blue rampant growth to get another island on the battlefield. So I know at first glance, it looks a little suspicious, right? It's a 100-card singleton deck. What are the odds that we actually hit an island in our top 7 cards? But if you actually look at the math, it's not that bad. With just 10 islands, like the Richard mana base, you're 53% to actually hit an island with this. But if you turn into a Tomer mana base with
That's
17
bad.
islands, it's 75%. And once you get up to 30 islands, it's 92% to build your own rampant growth. And I know what you're thinking, that's a lot of islands. But remember, we're playing mono blue, and the only realistic way to ramp in blue without mana rocks is to play a bunch of islands. You get Mitotic Manipulation, you get High Tide, you get Retracted Image, so you really need a deck that's overflowing with islands anyway if you're going to ramp in blue. Plus, there's an extra upside to this card, which is Mitotic Manipulation cares about any permanent on the battlefield, not just your permanents. So, while it's not the primary goal of the card, this means that you might be able to snag something even better than Island. Like, what if your opponent plays an Ancient Tomb, and you have an Ancient Tomb in your deck? You might get an Ancient Tomb, or a Reliquary Tower, or a Bloatus Field, or a One Ring, or a Ristic Study. So when you add all this together, I think that playing Mitotic Manipulation in a bunch of islands is probably the best way to ramp in a mono blue deck in Commander. If you're Richard, you get to ramp without playing mana rocks. If you're Tomer, it's kind of a free roll because you're going to have 30 islands anyway, so you might as well. And if you're Phil, well, you're probably already playing green in your blue deck, so none of this actually matters to you. But imagine the value if Richard plays like a Fairy Artisan, and then you get one for free off Mitotic Manipulation. So that's what I'm selling you on. Invest in Mitotic Manipulation to solve all of your mono blue ramping needs.
So what was the stat again? If you have 30 islands, you get what, 75% chance
92.
to hit?
If you're up to 30,
92?
92%. It's 75% if you're at 17. If you're at 10,
Okay.
it's a little scuffed. That's where it's like around 50%. If you're playing a Richard deck with very few, or a Seth deck with very few islands, then it gets
Okay.
sus. But that doesn't include the possibility of like hitting the Reliquary Tower or Ancient, like the extra stuff that you could get out of this. You don't
It's
sound
2
convinced.
mana sorcery and untapped.
It's
if it
3
hits.
mana.
3 mana sorcery,
It's
untapped.
3 mana.
3 mana. For the love of God, just run an Arcane Signet. Come on. This is like insanity. This
Nah.
is, this is
Why?
like,
Fair
I
well.
thought you were a
no,
manipulation
no,
believer.
Vandal
I like
Blast.
the
Hear me
Restoration
out.
image, but
Hear me
not
out.
Mitotic Manipulation.
This is
That's
okay. This is the
3 times
maximum
the cost.
copium. I've never seen the level of copium. So you in a Seth mana base, when you're running like 9 freaking islands in your deck, and that's like in a mono blue deck. Okay, then you have a 47% chance of whiffing. Like, even if you think there's like a 50% chance of your farewell happening and blowing up your signet, you play that on turn 2, you're ramping for like at least like 3 turns. You make mana off it for 3 turns before the farewell goes off. What is this cope? What is this cope set?
I think
Tomer's
it's
had
worth
enough.
not
Okay.
investing.
Just play the Arcane
Okay,
Signet.
Half of the time your 3 mana spell not doing anything.
Okay,
What
so
is going on?
Wait,
So
why
let
did you pitch it as a rampant growth? Because it's untapped and then you effectively pay 2?
No, that was just
But
the
then you have to
closest thing
use
I could
it.
think of. It's just like a way to put a
Oh.
land on the battlefield. Maybe I should have used a better term there. I will say, Tomer, to answer your criticism, the last mono blue deck I played on Commander Clash, I played 32 islands in it. And my plan for ramping was this and Retracted Image. I was playing some artifact lands to steal your tech of using like Whir of Invention as another 3 mana ramp spell. So I think between that and like flip stuff like treasure maps and so forth, I think you can build a mono blue mana base where you don't have to rely on mana rocks like at all. I didn't have Arcane Signet in the deck. I did have Thought Vessel for no max hand size, but I think you can do it, and I think this card is why. So I actually think in mono blue in specific, I'm actually willing to cut my utility lands and play like 30 islands just to make this work, because I haven't come up with another way that's better at ramping in mono blue.
If you get above 90, I'm like on board with you. I'm very proud that you managed to go over
32
30
islands, easy.
basics in a single deck. Yeah, I think if it's 90%, I'm happy.
What do you think, Phil?
I play it in a persistent petitioners deck.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's
You got
cool.
a
You want to hit a
persistent
petitioner, or you want to hit an island with it?
I don't even know if that's
I
that
take
good,
whatever
'cause
I
that's
can get.
3 mana for a petitioner. But Richard, you got to be in on this, right? You love not getting wrecked by farewells and vandal blasts.
I feel you, Seth. I was where you're standing like a year ago. I think Phil actually presented this card to us as a form of ramp, right? And we had the retraced image Mitotic
Well, there
Manipulation
was
thing.
somebody
And I
at
have spent
the Magicon.
yeah, it was one of our fans.
Yeah,
And I
in
used to play
Frankfurt.
this a lot. But I spent so much time in that hypergeometric calculator, and the numbers are not good. Like Tomer said, right? Like I am not playing. So if you play 30 islands, I think you should play this.
Yeah.
But I'm not playing 30 islands. Okay, I have
Not
moved
worth.
beyond that stage, and I'm all on the O'Hare pack petite plan. Because if you play 30 islands, your mana base is so scuffed. Like the ramp isn't even worth it at this point. But if
But
you
then you can
play like
thwart.
5 islands, this thing like doesn't work
True.
at all, right? So I go ever flowing well, search for Azcanta, O'Hare Deepest Patique or whatever. I would just play Arcane Signet, frankly, over like manipulation.
Wow. If Richard
So
says he
I
will
play
play
Thought
Arcane
Vessel.
Signet,
I would play Thought Vessel, but I never go there, right? Because
Mm.
between Search for Azcanta, Darksteel Ingot, Solemn, Scampering Surveyor, there's enough blue ramp that you don't need to go here. But if you play all islands, I think this is legit. Like I'm surprised Tomo doesn't like this, right? Because if you're actually jamming 35 islands, this is the truth. It's just I will never do that.
I'm on board for this. If you have, I think 90% is my cutoff. If you go below 90% success rate on this, I will not run this. I like that also you can copy other things incidentally too. That's nice. But also I'm a very big basic island believer in mono blue because I think there's a lot of really good payoffs to run number of islands. There's Vidalcan Shackles.
Okay.
My favorite is like Scourge of Fleets, which is a one-sided board wipe. It's like a 5/5 ETB, bounce creatures toughness equal to the number of islands you control or less. And it's a flickerable target too, so it's like it can be really oppressive. So I think there's a lot of island payoffs actually. High Tide is also, I think, also very
the only good ones are the card draw ones. The like 5 mana draw for each island.
Those are good too.
The bounce
But
one's rough. Like I've played it so many times, and I have like 8 islands, and I still can't bounce the board. Sometimes things get really big, and it's like really rough. But Shackles, High Tide, the card draw spells are like amazing, but that makes you run like 12 islands, not 30. So
At least Tomer didn't say Floodgate. I thought we were heading towards a Floodgate.
Oh my god, okay.
We managed to dodge the Floodgate.
I didn't need to. That left unsaid.
All right, one last argument for this. Just like, so I would say by itself, would it be enough to make me run 30 islands? No. But I think if you run 30 islands, then you also get like High Tide so much better. Retracted Image actually becomes like a functional spell. So I think when you have like 3 or 4 or 5 things that kind of play into the same package, then I think it's actually worth kind of warping your mana base for that deck in specific. So I will keep.
I know it's not happening.
Playing my manipulations.
Like, I played
Mono
Blue so many times that I sit here with the island count all the time. So Mu Yanling, I have 9 islands. Kiora, no staples. I have 25 islands, and I didn't play Mitotic Manipulation. Oh, I did play Mitotic Manipulation. I did, because that was all the staples were banned, so I couldn't play Scampering Surveyor and Solemn.
Everything was banned, so you had to play it. Oh.
Scampering Surveyors, Clash Staple.
But like I played the Blue Island Matters package a bunch, and I still like conclude that it's not worth playing like so many, like up to 30, right? You play like 12, 15 or something. But I'm curious what Seth does with this, because I was too on this journey at one point.
Yeah.
Before I found O'Hare. O'Hare's just straight up better.
I can't believe this is worse than O'Hare or O'Hare, whatever the blue one is. Paprika.
O'Hare works, and it's a big body, and the blue one is actually good. It gives an instant rebound. Like that's like actual value that most blue decks can take advantage of, as opposed to the red one, where if you're not a burn deck, it just does nothing. So
yeah.
You're just one step closer, Seth. We all started at Mitotic Manipulation, and then we're gonna end up at O'Hare.
We're not ending up at O'Hare.
So who's with me, Sharks? Or any of you?
I'm with you.
Hey, thank you, Tomer.
I'll give you 25 cents in solid.
Well, I guess that's
I
fair.
See
I
it.
gave you 50 for Thwart.
Show it to me on Clash.
Yeah.
If it works.
All right.
If it whiffs, do you automatically take it out of your deck, or you're like, no, that's just variance, and we keep playing it?
It has to be 90%. If
If
it's less than 90%, I'm not on board. But if it's above, I'm down.
All right, Phil, hit us with the card.
Does this work?
Yes.
Okay. This is
even has a
artistic presentation.
Slide.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm coming dressed to impress and equipped with a presentation. Okay, check out this one. Gilded Drake. What a banger card. 2 mana, 3/3. When it comes into play, when it enters, exchange control with this card and target creature an opponent controls or sacrifice Gilded Drake. Buyer beware. Talking about buyer beware. First of all, oh yeah, very prepared. Okay, so you trade creatures, okay? You trade the Gilded Drake with anything.
Yes.
It's a trading card game, boys. Let's go. Okay, the problem with Buyers Beware is it is
Oh,
$225. That's crazy, and I didn't know that either, but something happened on January the 30th, 2021, which might have been, was it Reserve List? Because
It's
it was
Reserve
also
List.
a National Croissant Day.
Oh, and spaghetti
Related?
day.
I don't know.
The plastic
Anyways,
ones.
I mean, the guy looks like a croissant.
He does.
That might be it.
If you have the money, good for you, get the Gilded Drake. If not, Volatile Stormdrake, 2 mana, 3/2, flying, hexproof from activated and triggered abilities. When it enters, exchange control of this with target creature and opponent controls. If you do, you get 4 energy. Then sacrifice that creature unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. So you can steal any creatures. You'd say, well, what if the opponent doesn't play creatures? Well, it's commander. Most of the crazy, powerful, popular commanders are conveniently below 4 energy, so you can just steal them. Usually we say, oh, it's good in Prosper. This one steals Prosper. Okay, let's see. Okay, so what happens if you have a creature that you want to deal with that's more than 4 mana? You steal it, and it dies. And you even get the dice trigger if you, I don't know, play Demi or something. And then the opponent keeps like a 3/3, whatever. It's also hexproof from activated abilities. Full disclosure, would be nice to get it back with Charming Prince or flick it with Eldrazi Displacer. Doesn't work, but what does work is Cyclonic Rift if you're one of those players who plays this. Also, do you see anything? No, okay, that one might have been a blank thing here. 166 instead of $200, and look at this one. Ooh, what do I have in my pocket? Oh, this. Look at this. $5, old border foil.
There's an old border foil of it.
It is old border foil, $5. I expected it to cost more. It does not. There's also a full art version if you, whatever. Old border, the king. I don't think there's another thing here. No. That's it for my presentation. Thank you.
I'm in. I played both in Zedru, obviously, because I got this Gilded Drake when it was like $20 Canadian. And I thought like, oh my god, this is so much money.
Wait, actual Gilded Drake?
Yeah, I'm old.
So
I bought it in the before days. Yeah, this card is sick because like best case scenario, you keep the commander, so they're like screwed. Like most decks are reliant on the commander. You just keeping it is like a death sentence for a lot of decks, and then you also get the value out of it. And then worst case is you steal their commander and it dies. So you pay 2 mana for a sorcerer speed, rapid hybridization or whatever, which is like, it's fine. You're going to be hit in the air for 3 every single turn, obviously. But I think it's very much worth it. It should be played more often.
They got a rough anyway to get back their commander. They got to do it.
They'll hit you for 3 in the air, though.
I can definitely get behind it being a budget replacement for Gilded Drake. That much I can be sold on. My problem is, on Commander Clash, I theoretically have an unlimited budget. We don't have any like restriction on that, and I never play Gilded Drake, even though I theoretically could. So if I already don't play Gilded Drake, like, does this mean I should be playing Gilded Drake and Volatile Stormdrake? Like, are they actually just cards and I'm missing it? Because I don't think I've ever played either one of these cards because I just assumed the effect wasn't good enough. But if you want a budget replacement for Gilded Drake, it seems great. I'm just not sure if I want to play Gilded Drake.
Yeah, I don't play it on Clash much because it sucks over webcam.
Oh, yeah.
And it is pretty brutal to just steal your commander and say, sorry for your game plan.
Oh, that
doesn't. I'm going to see this today. So it is a little, is it stacksy? I don't know. But Gilded Drake is super salty, man. If you roll up with a $200 card and say, I control your commander now.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Just play the weird thing with the long text box that you have to explain and they say, oh, if I got to pay energy for it. I don't know. It has X-proof. Also, if you play this on an empty board, you have a 2 mana 3/2 flyer that wears a sword or whatever.
That Dowsing Dagger.
Yeah, if you're on the play, 2 mana 3/2 flyer. Hexproof.
Phil, this was the greatest presentation I've seen for 2 mana sorcery speed removal.
It is kind of
okay.
removal, yeah.
You got like we have this thing called Vidalcan Shackles, okay? Like Tomer just pitched it in blue that you can just straight up steal things and you can change your target every turn. If you want to steal things, you can just control magic. Like
Okay.
blue has like a million ways to steal things. Why are you trying to Gilded Drake people, right? Like Zedju, I understand. Like Zedju has a literal point
mana.
to it. But
It
do
is cheap.
you just play Gilded Drake as like a terrible control magic? Like, is that what we're doing? Why would you?
Is it terrible? Wow, we get the Toma close up. My God. Is it terrible?
I don't know.
Do I have
like,
to
do you
bring
play?
Gilded
Like, do you
Drake?
want control magic? Like, if it's like a strong
so-
creature, like for example, like a Jin Gitaxias, right? The table's already quivering, and then you're the problem now, and they're all just gonna try to gang up and kill you, right? If it's something that is like not impactful, like Prosper, that you're taking from your opponent, it was just sorcery speed removal, which you can just imprison in the moon, you can rapid hybridization, the thing that makes a fish,
but
whatever, right?
This
Like,
doesn't trigger like Tocasia's Welcome, and it doesn't trigger Lonis. I do play
Oh,
the
it is a
Lonis.
creature.
It is a
Lonis.
creature.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just biased for creatures because you're kind of right. Like with
You give them a
Vidalcan
3/3,
Shackles,
a 3/2 flyer to hit you in the face for the rest of the game because they're upset at you. That's
Yeah,
that's
that's
the only
only
problem.
Wait, if the farewell comes for your Arcane Signet, okay, it's gonna come
Yeah.
for the 3/2.
And then you didn't need to do any of this, right? If the farewell is coming, you didn't need to do any of this. You could have just drawn cards on your
I
turn.
forced them to do it. I got that Prosper.
maybe.
I need to bring
Maybe.
it to
Only
play.
creatures,
Hmm.
right?
I'll
This is
experiment
all
with it.
creatures,
It is
only
only
creatures.
creatures.
including
Yeah,
Gilded
yeah,
Drake,
creature.
right? You
Both
can't
of them.
steal like a
Mhm.
non-creature.
Yep.
Mhm.
So I mean, I'm definitely sold for budget replacement. I'm sold for energy decks. As far as just jamming it in blue decks, I'm gonna have to experiment with it a little bit. So maybe I'll give it a shot. Maybe you impress me with Volatile Stormdrake on Clash Fill, and I'll start playing it, and I'll try to get you with the manipulation. Let's do it that way. Make it look good once or
Oh.
twice on camera, and then I'll start putting it in my decks.
Okay.
You manipulate into a Volatile Stormdrake. But
And then Thwart.
do you play
protect it.
Bribery? Isn't Bribery just a better version? of
Bribery's
this? Like
busted.
I go into your deck
Bribery
and
is
get
crazy.
your bomb
I used
rather
to
than
play
like
Bribery.
whatever happens to be on the battlefield, and I get the ETB trigger and like all of that stuff, and it's just 5 mana.
If you look
right?
at my old deck list, I used to play Bribery, but it has almost no synergies. Maybe I just like the Stormdrake because it's like, ooh, it also triggers this and this. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
maybe that's why I like it more than because Bribery is busted.
All right, so who is buying in on Phil? Who is Phil exchanging his Volatile Stormdrake with? Who's doing it? Seth.
So I do buy it as a budget replacement. I'm not to the point of really investing though. I think your company is gonna do fine, Phil. It's just not for me.
So I think it's good. I think it's CDH play as well. It makes more sense there too because like everybody's running like the
Steals
best.
partners. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's always a good target for it. I think it's very mean though. So like
It is.
I run it in Zedru, but I don't think I'm gonna start running it in other decks. I think it's good.
You know how I feel
just-
about spot removal, let alone sorcery speed spot removal.
Yeah.
I think if you want to steal stuff, you can be even meaner and more efficient stealing things. So
More efficient.
Okay.
I mean, shackles. I mean, I guess it's I don't
You get
depends how you define efficient, right? But like shackles, you can just steal things and keep stealing them every turn based on number
how
of
many
need a lot of
islands do you
islands.
want
But
to?
Shackle, it's also
Yeah.
like 5 mana to steal the first one. This is like 2 mana
Yeah.
and bam, it's over.
Yeah, but only 4 or less. I mean, just play
Just
Prison in the
play-
Moon. it
It's a
equally
half-price
annoys
control
people and is
magic.
equally like terrible for them, right? Because I mean, you ramp them, but their commander is now like forever locked there. Joke's on them if they're
I
mono
gotta
black.
target you with this.
You can take my
Yeah,
Spirited
play it.
Companion and upgrade it to a 3/2 flyer. Okay. Tomer, what do you have?
All
for
right,
us?
I got a spicy one. So I wanted to continue the trend of ramp, the talk of ramp, because Seth talked about ramp, and he mentioned also Word of Invention. I believe I've converted some people into Word of Invention believers, but I believe there's another step to it. We talk red ramp, we talk about a lot of silly things like Osiers and whatnot. I'm not on board with that. I'm on board with a different card though. Cleansing Wildfire. 2 mana, red, sorcery. Destroy target land. Its controller may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle the library, draw a card. Now, you all know that I am a #1 hater of Field of Dead and Glacial Chasm. I play against it very much, and I make sure that I have multiple tools to get around it. Well, this is one way of getting around it without going down a card, which I very much like. And it gets rid of like coffers and whatever problematic thing you need. But I am actually more interested in using it on my own lands. The biggest reason is because this pairs very nicely with indestructible lands, such as the indestructible artifact lands. There's one for each color pair out there. They're all indestructible lands that enter the battlefield tapped. And also there's a colorless one, Darksteel Citadel, that goes into any deck. And then there's I think a couple other ones that also are incidentally indestructible, but they're not artifacts. Yeah, that one. So let's say you're in an artifact deck and you're running your Weirs of Invention, you're running your amphibian, whatever the heck it is called. I run it. It's like it has artifact cycling, artifact lane cycling in it. So you're running all these ways to find your artifact lands pretty consistently because they're just good lands in your artifact deck. Or in your red base deck, whatever. You find that, and then you Cleansing Wildfire your own indestructible land. The land doesn't get destroyed. That doesn't matter. You get to ramp out a basic, and you draw a card. So in that situation, it's literally a rampant growth that also draws you a card, which in red is actually astounding. So I run it in Tetsun. I've showcased it in Tetsun, but I also run it in my Is It Spellslinger decks. Because I'm still running Weir of Invention there. It's a 3 mana rampant growth at instant speed for me that also has versatility. But then I'm also adding in like Sojourner's Companion to land cycle for this nonsense. And then I'm running the Cleansing Wildfire to rampant growth off of it. And if you run a field or glacial, then I still have some tech for that as well. What do you think? 2 mana rampant
I've seen
growth,
you
draws
do
your card.
the turn 2 thing, and I was very jealous. Gotta give you this. Building your mana base around this seems...
I like the card. And I do think it's I like that it's land destruction, that you get your card back. I think that's pretty powerful. The cost of any card that cycles for 2 mana is not super high to put in your deck. My question is consistency. When I just look at the math, if you have 4 artifact lands in your deck, your odds of having one at the start of the game is 25% or something. So I guess you'd have to convince me that you are realistically, if your plan is to use it as a ramp spell, I guess you got to convince me that the math actually works. I like where you're going with it. Does the math actually work though? That would be my
I checked the
question.
math because I also looked into Cleansing Wildfire for a while. So I'll give you the details on it. So Cascading Cataracts is the only indestructible land that's not an artifact. Okay, and that can go in it's a colorless land. And then Darksteel Citadel is an artifact land that generates colorless. So those two can go into mono red. And then you have a cycle of 1, 2, 3. You have 10. Wait, do we have the complete cycle? 1, 2, 3,
The dual
4, 5,
lands?
6, 7, 8. Yeah, we have 10 dual lands. So if you're multiple colors, you can play them, but if you're mono red, you're out of luck. So if you have so let's say the first 5 turns, you look at 12 cards, okay? If you have only 2 successes, so you're playing the 2 colorless lands, so you're playing mono red, 77% of the time, you're not going to see one of those lands, right? If you bump it up to say 6, right? 45% of the time, you're not going to see one of those lands. So I did this math when I was trying to do this, and I'm like, this will never happen, right? And I don't want to sit here and cycle my, 2 mana cycle is not exciting, right? So it doesn't ramp as consistently as you want it, and you open yourself to getting blown up by a farewell because the artifact lands do get killed, right? By exile effects and stuff like that, right? So that's one of the cases where I'm just like, F it, Darksteel Ingot. Right, it's just 3 mana indestructible. You get blown out by farewell, but it's no setup required, right? So it depends how much you want your land destruction in there. But we have Sundering Eruption, which is an MDFC, which does land destruction that everyone includes now. And then if you play Strip Mine or something, do you really need this?
I don't run this in mono red. I have a mono red deck. I have 2 mono red decks. I don't run it. I run them in Izzet decks because my Izzet decks, you're right. If you're in mono red, you just don't have enough options. In Izzet, though, it also struggles with traditional ramp outside of Banner Rocks, and some people don't believe in those. But you get access to 1 more indestructible land, and Izzet is very good at tutoring up artifacts. So on top of Sojourner's Companion, I'm always running Whir of Invention, because that's access to blue. I love Trinket Mage because it finds artifacts mana 1 or 0 in the deck. And then you can also run stuff like Fabricate and stuff. There's like a lot of really good artifacts. And then in red, there aren't as many good tutors. But if you are in an artifact deck, if you're like, Izzet artifacts, for example, there's still like Goblin Engineer, where you can like tutor up a thing, put it into your graveyard, put an artifact, and then you could put it onto the battlefield by switching out an artifact from the battlefield and with something in the graveyard. So there are a lot of trickeries to actually drastically increase the chances you see one of these lands. And then at worst case, you can just treat it as a removal spell that you can cycle, or you just cycle it for 2 mana, essentially. Whatever.
There's more cleansing wildfires, right? Like I think cleansing wildfires
There's one
the
for
best.
3.
So I run
but there's more of them.
Gambit too. It's 3 mana, and I didn't want to mention it because then it's 3 mana, and then you're like less inclined. But I run both. I run Cleansing Wildfire, Geomancer's Gambit, and then like 3 or so tutors in my Izzet decks. Like these are just all in my Izzet decks now. They're just auto includes now.
I like that.
What they have to do to copy Green's power.
Yeah, if you're
blow
like
Field of the Dead,
if you gotta like
understand how much I hate Field of the Dead.
But if you got a Goblin Engineer to get a land in your graveyard, then sack an artifact to get the land on the battlefield, and then Cleansing Wildfire to get a ramp, boy, that's a lot.
No, you don't
that
have
is
to
a lot of
sacrifice
work
a
to actually
land.
do it. But my
sacrifice like
I feel like this
or
is
whatever.
going to be good. I feel like this is one of those companies that right now you aren't making any money and things are looking grim. But like 20 years from now, Wizards will probably have printed way more artifact lands and way more of these effects, and it'll probably be a super legit plan. So I'm still a little sus at the consistency of it, that I want to jump through that many hoops. But I do like the card, and I think like it's not that bad. It's fine. But I don't know if I want to warp my deck to that extent or deal with the inconsistency if I don't warp my deck to that extent.
If I see a red indestructible land in spoiler season, I'll start investing. If I have to tutor out a land to blow it up with another card, and then that's it. It looked super sick when you did it, by the way, Toma. I was very jealous, but I'm not gonna be modifying my mana base for this. I think
Try it in Izzet. Just try it. You're
It
one
makes
of
sense
the
in
cool.
artifact
It
decks.
is-
So when Tetsun
it
when
is
he
kinda
played it in
cool.
Tetsun, it makes sense because you're running all your artifact tutors anyway. And then if you want, you can use them to whir out a land and then Cleansing Wildfire and ramp. So it makes sense specifically in that deck. Everywhere else, I'm like, like I too once
Spellslinger.
ran a startup.
Wait, you do it
just
in
like this,
Spellslinger?
Tomer.
You're like
It's
Trinket
in
Maging
my
up
Melic
artifact lands in
Spellslinger deck.
Spellslinger?
Yeah, why not?
That might
But
make
wouldn't you
sense
want
because you
more
want to cast a
Spellslinger
spell.
stuff?
Yeah, you want to cast instant sorcery.
Yeah.
It's a sorcery in the deck.
Yeah, okay.
yeah, it's not an
I
artifact.
mean,
Yeah, but you
I
definitely
was
wanna
here to
cast
end up an O'Hare
Trinket Mage.
Axonal still.
Yeah, but Whir of Invention is essentially a Mitotic Manipulation that's at instant speed that you could also tutor up
Whir
other
for
things
land is
too.
cool, by the way.
Word for land
Yeah.
is
That's
very
cool
good.
talk.
So if you're already running that, and then you run a couple other ways that incidentally find artifact lands, then you just be like,
the
okay,
problem is
well,
it's not free, right? You're holding a Cleansing Wildfire in hand that you possibly don't want, and it's 2 mana to
Cycle
cycle
it.
which is a big deal. Like, when's the last time you cycled a Triome or something, right? Like,
when was
it's
the
a
last time
big
you've
deal.
blown up a bounce land? You could relive
do like
the
that.
dopamine rush.
was that what
The
you wanted to
dopamine
spend
rush.
your early turns doing, like blowing up
It's
a bounce
very
land?
funny. I
It is
like
fun.
it.
I do
Did I
also
draw a
like it.
card?
You know what, actually, Tomer? I might be it now. Now that you mentioned Bounce Land Punishment, you know what? I might actually
It's
be
even
looking for
better
that
on
after
the
all.
Dowsing Dagger land, right? That's
Oh,
a 3
yeah.
mana land.
Oh,
Got
God,
him.
yes.
You're just setting up Surveyor Scope, though. I don't know.
You know,
Nah.
I'm in. Small investment, but
because
I'm in. I'm in,
Well,
Tomer.
Richard
I'm with
can't
you.
find a
Geomancer's
basic.
Gambit sucks. All right.
This was like a callback to the old tech. In white, you have Flagstones of Trocaire.
Yeah.
And then when it
Mhm.
dies, you can tutor up a
Mhm.
plane. So you play it and then you destroy it yourself. Maybe with like
Yep.
Night Wicked. Was it Night White Orchid
Boombust,
Phantom
right?
or whatever.
That-
There's a new one that's like actually kind of good.
Oh,
So you
yeah,
can
yeah.
destroy your own land and then ramp as well. So this is kind of similar to that old tech. So it's been around
like
and
the
it's
White
been
Orchid
proven.
tech.
People like it.
There's actually a modern deck built around it at one point, doing that exact thing, cleansing Wildfire your flagstones.
Yeah. All right. Okay. This is the ultimate Richard card. You guys ready? You guys ready? I've been thinking so hard about this, okay? It's been keeping me up every night, and I think I have broken it. The card is called Fruition. Okay, it's from Portal. It's like 50 cents, okay? It's 1 green sorcery.
Oh my
For
god.
each forest you and your opponent have in play, you gain 1 life. Okay, so the ideal scenario is there's a Yavimaya Cradle of Growth on the battlefield, right? You play Fruition, and it's a 1 mana gain 30. So, I ask you, Sharks, how much is 1 card worth? How much life is 1 card worth before you will play it? Right? So if it was like 1 mana gain 5, I think no one would play it. Okay? What about 1 mana gain 10? 1 mana gain 15? 1 mana. At some point, you're gonna play it, right? And
Yeah.
the way I was trying to think about it was like, okay, you have an opening hand of 7 cards. If I gave you an 8th card, would you start at 20 life? Right? Like when you start framing it in different ways, you start thinking about it differently, right? Like they're like, how much life is a fog actually saving? You know, like how much is 1 card worth? And I feel Fruition gives you enough life that it is worth playing to like give you that buffer to like ride out the game, right? You're not going to be deathly low. So the problem is you need Yavimaya. And even if you don't have Yavimaya, if you're a green player, like this will be like a 1 gain 7 or 8 or something without Yavimaya on the battlefield. But luckily you're in green, so you can tutor up Yavimaya whenever you feel like it. And is it worth it to tutor that up instead of some other utility land? But 1 mana gain, like think Mana Geyser. How much mana we get with Mana Geyser?
No.
That's just straight into life,
Wait,
right? So like
where we
typically you see
going?
guys
That's
with
like-
like 30, 35 or something, right? Like
That's
maybe
like comparing
25.
Lotus a healing salve or
No.
something.
I'm
I
saying
don't know,
like you can think of the numbers we see, like how many lands are on the
Yeah.
battlefield by how much
Yeah.
Mana Geyser makes, right? And it's at least 20 to 30 to 35, including yourself, right? So is it worth doubling your life for 1 card, 1 mana?
I think if you are if you have like 6 or so land tutors in the deck, like that's your shtick is finding up your field of, because if you're a field of dead deck and you're using your Archer charms and crop rotations and all that degenerate field of dead nonsense,
So
that
all
people
green
love,
decks.
all green decks, all tuned green decks. Then I am actually gonna buy in. I would like to play this card. I also never heard of this card before, so that's also.
Yes.
I've been playing for like since 2011 Commander, and I thought I saw all the cards. I have not seen this one, so that's
And-
already a very impressive.
Yeah,
I
when
will run it.
Richard put Fruition on our sheet, I actually asked him if he stopped typing halfway through the card because
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a card that was just named Fruition. 2 concerns, Richard. Here's my 2 questions for you. First, gaining 30 life for 1 mana, worth it, but that's going to be a late game plan, right? This is like late game life gain because you need the lands to build up on the battlefield. Like,
Yep.
Is there any worry that it's just like too slow because you got to wait until so late for it to do anything? And question 2, while you're answering, is it better than just playing a fog? If you think about the amount of life you're gaining with an effect, do you think that this is gaining more life than a literal fog, like fizzling a combat at some point during the game? Like, I know you don't have the timing restriction. You can cast this whenever you want, except you got to be late game to get enough lands. But is it better than just playing a fog would be my second question.
I think it is. I think you play maybe 1. So before, if you play 2 fogs, you play 1 each. So you don't have the timing restriction, right? Like you don't need to be on death's door, or you don't need to have the mana up, right? And people may play suboptimally, right? They may knock you down low. Like if you play it early, they'll just knock you down, right? So if you go to like 50, everyone's at 40, everyone will just hit you, so everyone's at 40, so it's kind of useless. But if people are like spreading the love, everyone's at 10, you rip a Fruition, go back to 40, you basically win the game, right? Like it's very hard to come up like we've seen people put like lifelink on like a 20/20 and they were like they gain 20 in one swoop and you're like, oh, this is like unbeatable now, commander damage time, right? So I think you do want to play it late, and it's only 1 mana, so you can fit it in, and you don't need to hold it. And here's the kicker: like the anti-fog tech doesn't work on Fruition, right? Now you need anti-life gain tech, right? If they're like damage can't be prevented this turn, you're like, well, I'm at 50. Good luck, right? And it works so good late game because if you're at like 40, everyone's at 10. People are attacking. They're like, I might as well just kill this guy. He's at 10, right? Like that guy's at 50. I'll deal with him later. Like I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll deal with him later because this guy's like on death's door. Let me kill him. So I think it's really good. I've only played it in one deck so far. And I didn't draw it, so it didn't matter. But so I don't know how this actually plays out, but this has to be the best life gain card in Magic the Gathering. No, if you're playing like Shadow Spear to gain life or something, or like Whip of Erebos, like this is on that level, right? Like it's at least Whip level, Sangromancer level.
Yeah,
it's so efficient.
So the only issue I would say is all this does is gain life, right? Like that's what I would see as the difference between like Whip or something like that, where Whip
one
is
card.
Bad reanimation, but you get to gain life. With Shadow Sphere, you're getting trample along with being able to gain life. So I still think, though, it gains a ton of life. Enough that I will try it. It's enough that I'll try it, because I do think if it's just 1 mana gain 30 plus life, that's probably good enough for me to play.
Yeah, it offers no utility. I think that's kind of the important thing. Like, I love life gain attached to something.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite surprise
the plowshares off of you. It does nothing. Like, it keeps you alive.
No, but like Crypt Incursion, for example. It's instant 3 mana instant in black, and you like exile all creatures in a person's graveyard, and you gain 3 life for each one of those. Those have been clutch. Like I will exile like 5 creatures if somebody's in somebody's graveyard, gain 15, and that will just keep me alive over a lethal attack that was coming at me. And also, like, it messes up combat math. Like, they already committed, right? So instant speed, you've already messed up. Like, they thought it was lethal, but it's not. Or like somebody goes for like a mass reanimation, and you're like, no, exile all your creatures. So like, I think there's merit.
Very good,
like,
but it's black.
It is black. But I think just like this is like gaining so much life so easily with Yavimaya that I think I'm gonna try it. But I need to have Yavimaya on the battlefield. If you can't consistently have Yavimaya on the battlefield, I'm not.
Oh, it's so bad if you don't.
Well, is it like it's probably 1 mana gain 10 to 15 like or something,
5,
right?
1 mana gain 10 to
Richard
15.
mana base, how many forces do you have on the battlefield?
Well, but if Phil's on there or Tomer's there, like other people
it
play
does count
green
other
too
people.
naturally. Right?
Other players play green and Yavimaya. Like, we do play a lot of Yavimaya and Urborg, so I might
You guys love Yavimaya and Urborg.
give this a shot. It's like 1 mana gain 20 is where I'd say, yeah, I should probably play this. But then again, it doesn't have any. Like, I should also probably play like Gilded Drake, but I usually don't do it if it doesn't have. But if it's, well, like, a better example would be Bribery. Like, it is good, but if you don't, I might give it a shot. If you guys try it and everybody starts playing green with Yavimaya, I'm gonna be
I'm in.
part of you guys. Let's see who calls it first.
Like how much life does
buying
it really need to gain? Like I'm actually curious. I don't know what the right answer is. So 20 is good enough? Like 1 gain
30
20
20?
seems like
30.
I don't
that's
know if
a
20 is enough for
big
me.
accent.
30 then?
30, I
30.
think I'm in for sure.
I think
So
20,
amongst
30
4
is
people,
what
everyone
would
needs
stop
7
attacking
lands. And you need Yavimaya on the battlefield.
I had 25 might be
Easy,
all
I
right.
guess.
Maybe a little under 30 would be fine, but it's gotta be a huge amount. Because it's
Fruition,
already,
Ballad
we
Cat
had-
Recovery, Fruition. You're immortal.
I
No
I
one
just think
can
there's
we had
if you just want to gain life, there's other options, right? If you're gaining 10 life or something, there's a lot of cards you can play that are gonna like relatively cheaply gain you around 10
So
life. So it's really gotta be a huge number for me to
What
be
card is like 1
interested.
card gain 10 life?
Soul
Oh,
Sisters.
what is the name?
Effectively.
Life.
I mean, we play Soul Sisters just to gain life, right? Like,
So life goes on
life
is-
gain is a game changer. Remember when
Goes
Tomer
on
played Diamond Valley or something and we couldn't kill him? He was just like, I gained 30 life off my land, and then
That was like Grim Harvest or something. But that was
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like, yeah,
yeah,
that
or
was
like
because I was playing,
Petramos, right? Like
Oh,
he
we
like
had
gained
this,
50
yeah.
life, and then we still couldn't kill him. Like it was like very difficult. Like the life gain matters, right? It gives you that 1 or 2 extra turns to like do your thing.
not only that, but we had multiple situations over the years where one person got like so much life that it doesn't feel worth attacking them. And in your head, you're like, I gotta find another way to deal with this. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
go there with
It,
like
it only takes like
10
15
damage.
life or
Yeah.
something. Like someone hits 60, you're like, oh, this is like untenable,
this-
right? Like we
yeah,
gotta
deal with them
do
other
something
way.
else, right?
So the competition, life goes on, 1 mana gain 8 if a creature died this turn. And then the 2 other cards I want to mention, Toil to Renown is 2 mana sorcery, gain 1 life for each tapped artifact, creature, and land you control, which could, I think, be gaining 20 life. Another one is Weather the Storm, which is just instant 2 mana, gain 3 life storm. So if you cast on a turn when people are playing things, you can probably gain like 15 pretty easily off of that. And maybe
There's also-
more depending on the turn.
Peachka Oath for 1 white, gain 2 for each creature you control, I think.
There's
That
there's
can
a
also
few
be
like
a
that. If
1
you have a bunch
mana
of
gain
creatures,
10
you can gain a
easily.
ton.
I mean,
I'll try
the
it.
best
I'll
one is
try it.
Soul Warden, right? 1
Yeah.
mana,
Yeah.
gain like 20 life or something, right? And you have Essence Warden in green, but you know it does die to Wrath, and then if you play it early, people see and they start hitting your face and killing it. So this is a surprise version of it. But I think 1 mana gain 30's got to be.
It's a
good,
sorcery,
right?
right?
I'll try.
It's a sorcery.
Yeah,
It is.
If it's
sorcery,
instant,
not
oh
instant.
my god! If it was
Instant,
So this
instant, it
would be
cracked.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Seth, what do you have for us?
All right. I guess I'm just following Richard today because I have a green card now. We went blue into blue, green into green. So sharks, what are the most powerful things you can do in Commander? There's 2 things that are better than everything else. And that is generate mana advantage and generate card advantage. Those are the 2 things that matter in Commander. So today I'd like to sell you on a card that does both of those things. Maybe not quite as efficiently as some other cards, but it's so flexible and it's so good in both the early game and the late game that I think this card should be played way more. And that card is Shigeki Jukai Visionary. So Shigeki, it's a 2-drop that lets you pay 2 mana and bounce it back to your hand to look at the top 4 cards of your library and put a land, any land, onto the battlefield, and the rest go to your graveyard. It is tapped, but it is can be a non-basic land. So as far as ramp, it's kind of like a Scholar of the New Horizons mixed with a Satyr Wayfinder. Like Scholar, yes, theoretically, you could play it on turn 2 and someone could kill it before you get to activate it, but in practice, at 2 mana, it's too fast to get Wrath, and who's going to spend their target removal on this random 2-drop? And like Satyr Wayfinder, in theory, you could look at your top 4 and not find a land, but if you're playing 38 lands, you're 92% to hit at least 1 in your top 4 cards, which is actually like a pretty good number. Plus, you get to hit non-basics, which is way more powerful than just hitting basics. And as a bonus, the cards that you don't hit go in your graveyard. So it's kind of like having a second hand, as we've talked about before. But it gets even better because in the late game, when you don't really need ramp, or you're afraid it's going to get wrathed or killed before it loses summoning sickness, it has a channel ability. So for double X in green, you can channel it to return X non-legendary cards from your graveyard to your hand. So this isn't super efficient, but essentially for 4 mana, you get back 1 card, 6-2, 8-3, but we're in green, so we're probably gonna have a ton of mana, and in the late game, being able to spend 8 mana or 10 mana to get 3 or 4 cards from your graveyard back to your hand is actually pretty realistic. It's like a slightly more expensive Wildest Dreams that also can ramp in the early game. And then if you want to go super deep, there's some weird value loops where you can like Shigeki to get back a bunch of stuff, and then use Balagad Recovery to get back Shigeki, and then Shigeki can get back Balagad Recovery and a bunch of other stuff. So once you're in the late game, it just is this infinite value loop, assuming you have the mana. So what I'm selling today, it's not just a magic card, it's a dream. It's a dream of a ramp spell that can find your busted utility lands while also refilling your hand with action. It's the dream of infinite mana loops where you're never going to run out of things to do. It's a dream of a 2-drop that's just as good on turn 10 as turn 2. And that's what Shigeki has to offer, Shark. So I'm selling you, Shigeki Jukai Visionary. Should play it in every deck. It's busted.
You know
Martin
what?
Luther
This
King was
reminds,
selling Shigekis all along.
this reminds me of like that. Remember Magnifying Glass? Remember when Seth played Magnifying Glass in every single deck, and it was just like it's a 3 mana rock, it taps for 1, but you could pay like 8 mana or whatever nonsense to like make it investigate, make a clue.
That was probably like 8 years ago.
That was
Before
like
they
But
did
that-
card
or
drop.
something, but-
It has big Magnifying Glass vibes to me. It's like
Really?
instead of
Oh,
playing
come
a rampant
on.
growth that takes me from turn 2 rampant growth that allows me to play a 4-drop on turn 3, I'm like playing Shigeki on turn 2 ideally, and then turn 2 I'm activating that mana. Probably
Turn 3, yeah.
activating that
Maybe.
mana.
Then you
instead
have
of
3.
it's-
You have 2 mana left over afterwards.
And then it's for flex. I like that it's flexible, but it's like both sides are kind of bad. It could also whiff. If you're a big MDFC believer, and I know Seth's a big MDFC believer, like, yeah, okay, you have 38 lands, but then like 32 of them are actually hits for this if you're running like 6 MDFCs, and then it starts getting really bad.
MDFCs don't work.
Yeah, you
right?
can't
That
hit MDFCs with this, and then like if it's like less than an 80%, if it's less than a 90% chance, I don't want to activate this. Like, pay 2 mana, then pay another 2 mana the next turn because it doesn't have haste, and then whiff, and then I'm like, then I rip that card. I take it out of the sleeve, I rip it, and I throw it out into the trash. So yeah, I've seen this card a lot. I've never been impressed.
Really?
I played this
I'm
card.
out.
So I started
Harsh.
my Lonas deck, played it for a while, and Necrobloom and my Omnath deck all tried it, all for
Didn't
different
like it?
reasons. I
Did it break
kinda
Necrobloom?
did. It is a little clunky, but it does a lot. Like, if you have it, like, you play it in the early game, and then you bounce it turn 5, play a 3-drop or something, and then you have it in your hand, and you have this. It doesn't get legendary stuff, I think.
It doesn't get
No,
I
legendary.
ran into the problem.
non-legendary.
Yeah, I cut it from Lonas in the end because most of my combo pieces, like Urza and stuff, is legendary, so it kind of
Yeah. Yeah, if you
what
want a
am I
bunch of
gonna
legends,
get with it. It is an
Think of the
enchantment
value, Phil. Think of the
creature.
value.
It is I tried it. I got the coolest version of it.
You can
I
hit
gave it the best
A
shot.
land that makes a token, and that token will trigger Caretaker's talent.
Look at the speed, though. The non-existent speed.
So it draws the
I don't
card,
know.
right? So the difference is it's like super slow, like scuffed ramp, but it bounces back into your hand, so you can then channel it to do something in the future.
Mhm.
The problem is the green curve is so fixed, right? Like, the green curve is 2 mana ramp into 4 mana ramp into play the game. Like, that's always the ideal curve, and that's like, you normally don't put like random 2 drops or like 3 drops in that don't facilitate that. What if you Shigeki into cultivate? That doesn't even really work because then you gotta wait
Yeah.
another turn. Like, what if you change that curve into Shigeki cultivate or like Shigeki flare of whatever the green one is? Like, if you change the curve and don't go 2-4, play the game, maybe it does something useful. Like, would you play a 3 mana rampant growth that draws a card? Probably, right?
Yeah.
Would you not? Like cleansing
I would.
wildfire, but
Would
like
do
just
that.
literally no setup, but it's 3 mana.
What if it was a
pretty
4
sure.
mana ramp?
Because it kind of draws the card. Like, it gets you this channel thing afterwards, right? So
It is kind of for.
The
there's
channel
got to be
ability-
some
four
way to make it
mana
work.
The channel ability is
growth
pretty
draw card.
powerful. But it's also Wildest Dreams or Praetor's Counselor. Like, in the late game, it's
Yeah,
just like,
the-
I get
the
all my
channel is
graveyard
the
back in
cool
my
part.
hand and you lose. Like, I think, like, yes, it's not as good as Rampant Growth as a ramp spell, but Rampant Growth's also not going to draw you 6 cards in the late game or whatever when you're like, are trying to close out the game and have a ton of mana.
I
Are
think
you
it's
willing
like-
to throw off your curve is the question, right? So if
Yeah.
you're holding a rampant growth and a Shigeki, what are you playing? You're playing rampant,
Rampant Growth.
Then
yeah.
then are you going to play Shigeki the next turn, or are you going to play Omen Path Journey? You're going to play
Omen Path Journey. But that's perfectly
Right? And then
fine.
now, and,
No,
then you're just using it as like terrible channel. Like, it never got
That's-
It's
ramped.
not terrible.
That's great though. If I go ramp, and I have like 14 mana or something for my other cards, man, I'm pretty fine with just pitching this.
Maybe
and,
you're right
getting 6
then.
cards back from my graveyard. Like,
Maybe you're
if I
right,
don't have the
yeah.
curve, then I'll play this. If I do have the curve, then I'll just channel it and get value out of it that way.
I think like
it wasn't bad. I just
also-
needed the things I can get back to be legendary. That
if
was
your combo
the
pieces
thing
are
that,
legend, that kills it. Yeah.
yeah.
So I run it in one deck. It's
Ooh.
like a super heavy land stack. Like, my 4-color on that deck had like 45 lands, like actual lands, not like MDFCs.
Mhm.
And in that deck, then I have a 90% chance of it hitting. I think that's my threshold. If you can have a 90% chance of that activated ability actually working, then
be
I'm
pretty
happy
high,
with
no?
it.
But that's just like,
Huh?
if you're playing
So you have to
38
have
lands, you're
43
basically-
hits.
How many hits do you
But-
need to hit like 90%? I feel that
I
this
think it's
part should be
43.
automatic.
It's
40,
Was it-
43.
Is it
You need
43?
43. Yeah.
That's a lot.
What happens if you miss?
I
Do you
thought it
still
was-
bounce it? It
Nothing.
still bounces.
You're just sad. You mill
no,
yourself.
no,
and
it
you're
still
sad.
bounces,
You
and you
mill.
get nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know though, because like at 38, it says it's 86%. So like, yes, I guess technically that's slightly below 90, but it's not like it's 60% or something. You're pretty close to 90, which is a typical mana base. And then if you're at
and you're at that
Sam Black
38, like how
builder-
many are MDFCs? Like how
Yeah.
many are like not
Mhm.
lands?
Yeah, you have to subtract the MDFCs from your.
You also
Okay.
land.
I mean, y'all only play like 2. We just did our
So-
stats episode. Y'all
No,
don't
but,
play
like,
that many MDFCs.
If I am in Omnath or whatever, I'm running like Exploration, I'm running Burgeoning and stuff. I'm running all that stuff to like vomit out the lands very quickly. And in that deck, it hits. And then the channel ability, I'm okay spending an exorbitant amount of mana. It's not cheap, you know? You have to pay 4 mana to get 1 card. Then the next card, if you want to get 2 cards, that's 6 mana. If you want to get 3, that's 8 mana. Like, it's not cheap, but I think like a lands deck actually can do it. But you need to have a lot of lands in this
Yeah,
deck.
look at every green deck though.
It's
Like
every
think of
green
every
deck,
green
though.
deck on Commander
No.
Clash. Doesn't every green player have like 20 mana by turn 8? Like I feel like that's just any
No.
green deck we see on Commander Clash.
That's because I just love high lane counts in green, I think. No.
All right,
I'm
I'm
out.
on the
in?
fence. I can
Are
see
you
it.
in?
I don't know how to. I don't know
It's-
how to
it's
do
so
the curve
flexible.
though. The curve seems so.
Don't think about
I
it,
will
Richard.
still
Just
play
get
it in
value.
lands
Don't
decks.
think about the
I'll
curve.
still play it in lands decks, but I need to have at least a 90% hit rate.
That's like
No,
every
over.
green deck though. No, is it every
No.
green deck a lands deck?
No.
I played it. I played it for the longest time in the deck that doesn't have too many lands, but then the legendary clause was the problem. But I can still, I get the point. It reads very good and it actually plays very good. It's just not the fastest, and I
Yeah,
kind of
that's
want to
true.
play on Nature's Law on turn 2 or something. But I don't feel bad casting it, bouncing it on turn 5, playing a 3-drop, and then turn 8, I get back something. It's
Yeah.
all fine.
Just remember, turn 9 is our average when the game ends. Okay, so like if you're aiming for like by
Yeah.
turn 15, I'm gonna get so much value. The game's not going until turn 15. Like we're stopping
Yeah.
around 9, 10, 8. You know, so that's the main fear. Is like this could be infinite value, but we have a clock. You know, by
But
turn
on
9,
turn
game's
9, the
done.
green player has like 16 mana minimum,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like that like you have a lot of mana at that point. If you made it there with Shigeki, then I think you won. The
It is
uh,
instant speed. The recursion is instant speed.
The channel
it's
is
channel
instant.
too, can't be countered.
Yeah.
Can't be
Can't be
counted.
So
countered.
you
Instant speed.
can channel to get Boseiju or something.
You can get back your
Boseiju.
pact to negation.
Like
Instant
Cavern
You
of
counter.
cannot get
Souls?
Boseiju. It is
Yep.
legendary.
And then you can
I
untap
hate-
and
Oh,
win.
never
possibly.
mind.
Can't get Boseiju.
Never mind.
I know,
Boseiju's
I know.
legendary. You
Just
can
try
channel
it.
to get
Yeah.
Thwart.
Yep.
Ooh.
And then you get
Activation.
Thwart and get 3 landfall triggers on your turn. Oh my god.
Yeah,
We
islands
did
in
it.
there now.
We did it.
We did it.
You got
All right, I'll invest, Seth. I don't
Hey,
know
there we
how we're
go.
gonna fit this.
We got
It
one.
theoretically makes sense. You're trading slower ramp for like a lot of value later.
Late game value. Yeah.
And then there's just random. It's an enchantment. It's a blocker. It's a creature. Like there's like random synergies here.
Feels
I don't know how to
graveyard.
fit in my curve.
It's all
I'll have
one
to see
for
a
you.
set deck.
I'll show you the power of Shigeki, but thank you, Richard. I'm glad at least one.
I'll
of you used it.
invest.
Hey, 2. We're doing
because
it.
I
Okay.
want it to be good.
You got old border.
I'll still take.
Nah, There's the extended art foil
Yeah.
that looks pretty good.
All right.
The art is kind of cool.
Do we have a second prom pitch?
Yes, we do. 1 second. Let me just do this. And then we go full screen. And here we go. The Restoration of Eiganjo. We've seen this because I play this card, because I believe in this card. I wouldn't pitch you something I don't believe in. Search your library. 3 mana. Saga. First chapter. Search your library for a plains card. Reveal it. Put it into your hand. Then shuffle. So chapter 2. You may discard a card. When you do, return target permanent card with the mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Chapter 3. Exile it. Return it as the Architect of Restoration. Vigilance 3/4. Whenever it attacks or blocks, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. Yes, of course, the spirit triggers Caretaker's Talent. To get this out of the way. The cool part about this is... Oh, I skipped one. Well, it looks like I missed out one. So the first ability was... Oh man, technical difficulties. Okay, let's just remember this ability. So the first one just searches the plains. At least make it old border. That's the only silver line I can do here. You can make it a foil as well. But the second one. You may discard a card, then you get to return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tab. Not only does this discard for cards like Hashaton, if you want to get a discard trigger, or get something in your graveyard to reanimate, for example, it also gets back the planes. You can just discard the planes that you tutored up, and you get it on the board. It is failsafe. It's fine. More likely, in good powered decks, you could get back a fetch land. You could also just get back something that died, like an Esper Sentinel. Or you get something that you died yourself, which this one's pretty brutal. Dorothy Voidwalker, you can sacrifice it, get something, get back the Voidwalker, and then we cookin'. And of course, you gotta live the dream. Remote farms, farm and ruin.
Oh, I was almost
Oh,
ready
that
to
was
invest.
so close.
Oh, baby.
Close.
Let's
sold.
go.
So close.
You gotta do it. I don't know which one of these lands is better.
Card?
Neither.
Remote
What
farm has an
the-
output of foil, so this
Oh
one's
my.
the good one. Also, okay, this one might be a meme. I'm trying to convince myself that this is good, and I play it a lot. I'm not sure where I'm at with this, but I am sure because we've seen this. Scholar of New Horizons with this
Hey.
crazy.
That's
You
very
can tap it to
good.
remove a counter and get a land, a plains, in your hand, put it onto the battlefield if an opponent has more lands than you. When we've seen this, I only got the chance to loop the first ability because there was a ghost vacuum. If you can do this to the second ability and put the second counter on there, remove it, so there's one counter again, so upkeep, you get another second counter. Every turn, you can discard the planes that you tutor up with the ability from the Scholar and then reanimate something.
That's
Well,
like
that's
ramp every
gas.
turn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Restoration of Eiganjo. That was my presentation.
Oh.
We've seen the card. It's nothing new, but
I
want to highlight it because it's so flexible.
I was about to whip out my wallet and give you all my money, Phil, until you got to the remote farm. That lost me a little bit. But Restoration of Eiganjo is great. Like, I play this in a lot of my white decks, and I probably should play it in
Very
all of
cheap
it.
as
I think
well.
we should think of it as like a Knight of the White Orchid or whatever, where this is just like staple level ramp spell. Like, it's a little slower. It's a little slower as far as ramp and for getting a body, but it still does the same thing, right? Like, the floor on this is 3 mana, you ramp a planes, and eventually get a 3/4 body that can make tokens. Like, yeah, I would play in every white deck. I'm
3/4
fully in on this
vigilance
one.
body.
It's not catch up, right? Like there's no
It's not. Nope, no restriction.
stipulation. Having said that, I play this like sometimes. It's always one of those cards I gotta think about. So the biggest knock with Eiganjo is it's not a body until it flips, right? So if you're trying to flip a Dousing Dagger or whatever, it doesn't help. But it also doesn't trigger Welcoming Vampire, Mentor of the Meek, etc. until it like goes through its entire saga mode.
But
So
then it
those are the
triggers it.
two biggest knocks with it. And then it's like 1 mana more expensive, right? Because all of the white ramp is 2 mana, although some of it is effectively 3, right? Like Knight of the White Orchid or something. You need to like wait onto the 3 mana turn, play it, and then play your planes or whatever. So I don't know. It's one of those like I always put in. Sometimes I cut, sometimes I don't. But usually it gets cut for the 2 mana ramp. But there's a lot of value here. And the Scholar combo is really strong. And then
That's sweet.
when you flip it, it makes 1/1s every turn, which triggers like your
Caretaker's
weenie
Talent.
card draw, Caretaker's Talent, whatever. It's just like an annoying, obnoxious body. And it's Sun Titanable, right? Like you can Sun
Mhm.
Titan it back.
Yep.
So I'm sold.
Sort of.
I don't put it in every deck, but I
Okay.
put it in some number of white decks. And it's always a consideration, right? You got to now you got to look at your deck and like, okay, what are the actual synergies here? Does this make any more sense over a Loyal Warhound? The biggest knock, Seth, is basic planes.
Yeah, that
Basic
is
planes
true.
is a problem, right? Because
That is true.
like, I cut
Okay.
is it Loyal Warhound? Yeah, Loyal Warhound is the one that gets basics, whereas Knight of the White
Yeah.
Orchid gets
I
any,
think
Cartographer's
Warhound, yeah.
Hawk gets any, right? So this matters more in like multicolor decks.
Yes.
But
And
if
mono
you play
white is fine.
multicolor, if you play Esper, you can double up on the Scholar plane and play Spark Harvester or something this also removes a counter and then draws a card for it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get a little bit of an engine cooking there, also with Urza Saga, you can have this little package
Like,
of counter remover.
so I think if you're looking at this as just like generic white ramp, I will never run this card because I think we have already like way too many better white catch-up ramp cards. We have Low Warhand's like probably the worst out of it, but there's Knight of the White Orchid, there's Claim Jumper, there's obviously Scan Scout as well. So we just got
Space
two
Marine
really
Scout.
strong ones from last year.
Cartographer's
And
Hawk.
I'm actually running Cartographer's Hawk more than I like to admit on the record. So like at that point, this is just a slower. This is just a slower version. I don't like my ramp slow. I like my ramp early. So I don't like that. But if I am in any deck that can remove counters or has like, counter synergy, then I think this card becomes much better because you could just like continually use the second ability or whatever, or the first chapter, the second chapter, and then it becomes really good. But like if I'm just like, oh, I need more ramp in my white deck, I'm not just jamming this. I need to have a reason to jam this. But I like it in certain decks.
I feel like this is like, I don't know, like the 8th best white ramp spell or something, but that's usually still like I want that number of ramp spells, so it makes it cut a lot. Like I rank it behind the best catch-up ramp creatures, but for me it still usually makes it in like the bottom half of my ramp if I'm on a white.
I think there's also a threshold for catch-up ramp, because if you have like 10 catch-up ramp cards in your deck, then you're gonna have a really high probability of just the catch-up ramp turning it.
But isn't that an argument for playing this though? Because it's not catch-up ramp, so then it's
No, but it
actually if
also
you're
turns
playing
on-
catch-up ramp, you probably want this too, because then you can catch-up ramp and then after play this and double ramp when you couldn't do that with 2 catch-up ramp spells probably.
No, this is the same issue with like green land ramp, where like if you're in a green deck, if you're Selesnya, you don't run the catch-up ramp cards. You're just running the land ramp cards because they'll turn off your catch-up ramp. I think this is the same thing. It also turns off your catch-up ramp. So like I don't want to have that many slots competing, and I think the catch-up ramp cards are more important to have because they're just better. And I don't want any more land ramp cards that are competing with like turning them off, So I'm just gonna run the best catch-up ramp cards instead.
I don't know about that.
Instead,
Don't you play Solemn and
catch-up
stuff?
ramp happens before this.
Like I feel like I don't know if I think of it in
I
that
run
same
Solemn.
way. You don't run Solemn?
If I'm running Sand Scout, no.
Oh, see, I play all those. I think that's
Well.
yeah. The problem I run into is if I play all catch-up ramp, only the first one or maybe the first 2 work, and then the rest of them are like the worst cards in my deck. So I
You
actually
can
don't
discard
mind playing a
them to
mixture
this.
of catch-up ramp and non-catch-up ramp and just getting trying to get the timing right as I play them. But I don't mind playing a mix because I don't like just all catch-up ramp.
I think this card is just less valued than a 2-mana dork most of the time, right? Because Dusk Dawn is a thing, right? Most people, you should be running it in white. This doesn't come back with it. And then there's just, like, I'd rather take a random card in my deck by triggering, Welcoming Vampire than getting this 3/4 body, right? Unless, I'm playing a tokens deck or something like that, right? And then this is slow. So it's kind of like Shigeki where you're slightly slower on the ramp, but then you get something out of it. In this case, you get a 3/4 body. But I don't know. I think most people should be thinking about this deck, thinking about this card. Every time you build a deck and you take a look at all your white catch-up ramp, you should be looking at this to see if it makes any sense. But most of the time I cut it. Sometimes I keep it, right? But it's always a consideration. Like it's always there, and I always look at it, and I'm like, is this the day we play Restoration of Eiganjo, right? And usually it's like, because I have Dousing Dagger, I feel it always puts this at a disadvantage. Like if I get a Dousing Dagger, I want a body to equip it to, and I flip it, I win the game. Right? Whereas the Restoration of Eiganjo like does nothing for me, right? It's just like slowly flipping into a creature that gets wrath away. Like, it's like not even giving me the early triggers for combat. But I don't know. I mean, if you play, I'm not like, oh wow, that's disgusting. I'm like, that's pretty good, right? So
Yeah, it is very
the floor
interesting.
is like very good still. So it's just a matter of like cutting rampant growth or something, right? Like, yeah, there's just better ones, but if you play rampant growth, it's not, terrible, right? It's still very, very good. So that's how I view this card. So I invest. I already have them.
I'm into.
I already have the fancy version.
I'm in on synergy
Yep,
decks.
same. It just does a lot.
All right, Tomer, bring us home.
All right.
What do you have?
I had a lot, but I have one that I think will probably be the most valuable to viewers.
Mm.
If you are struggling to close out games and you want just a cool card that overperforms over and over again and kind of steals wins out of nowhere, I have the card for you. It is Reigns of Power. It's a 4-mana blue instant that says untap all creatures you control and all creatures target opponent controls. You and that opponent each gain control of all creatures the other controls until end of turn. Those creatures gain haste until end of turn. So basically, you and target opponents swap creatures until end of turn, and those the creatures you stole, they gain haste. And basically what this does is it enacts like a mini insurrection that can be used at instant speed for just 4 mana instead of 8 mana. It's not going to be as devastating as a finisher as insurrection because it's a lesser effect. But in a lot of decks where you're like a creature-like deck, or we saw this very recently with Richard, most creatively, I think, in a vehicle deck, where you don't have a lot of creatures, but like you can, because your creatures are only creatures when they're crewed or whatever, then this card is actually insanely powerful. Like if you have a small board state and somebody has a lethal board state, for 4 mana, you just yoink the lethal board state and then kill them with their own creature for 4 mana. And this card has been winning me, like giving me free wins ever since I got into Commander of Political Puppets, which is 2011, the precon. The precon was it was the worst precon I think they ever made in the history of Magic. It was so bad. But the only 2 cards that would ever give me a win was this and Insurrection. And I think they were both on the same level. Where like if you're in a deck, if you're in any creature-like deck and you're struggling to figure out how to win, this was like, I yoink the best lethal board and I kill you. And it just keeps doing the trick. And you can also use it like as a fog, I guess, if you really need to. 4 mana, you just take control of a lethal attack against you, and that can also work. It removes them from combat and whatnot. So 4 mana fog, but also most likely it's just like 4 mana, I steal everything, I kill you. And then if you're in a sacrifice deck, if you're not just creature light, but if you're a sacrifice deck, you could like, if you have nothing on board, but you have like Sackala's like Phyrexian Tower or whatever, Lazotep Quarry or whatever, Phyrexian Altar on the battlefield, you steal everything, you smash people with it, you sacrifice everything. It's like absolutely devastating. So yeah, Reigns of Power. It's free wins, people. Free wins.
I mean, I lost to this, so it is clearly very good. I like using it as a fog. If you give it to the opponent with a sacrifice deck, don't give him your Lorn Soul Trader. That should be avoided.
Yeah.
So this card, I have it in one of my decks. I have it in my Frickrat Goad deck, and it's really good in that deck. It's all about messing with like combat anyway, so it's really good there. My only question is it kind of like boring? Like I know I stopped playing Insurrection because I found it to be an unsatisfying way to win a game of Magic. Like I think Insurrection's busted, but I didn't really feel good when I cast Interaction, just like, oh, I took your whole board, I gotcha. Like, is this another one of those cards? Like, should I think of this as the same way as Insurrection, or is there's something that makes it a little bit more satisfying? Maybe.
I think there is a build around because
this one's pretty cool.
If you have a big board state and you give them a board state, then it's like, well, now that doesn't work, you know. Like if I steal your big army, but I have like 8 blockers or something, your opponent, like I still have better creatures, but your opponent can just chump block or whatever. So I think there is still like some building around where Insurrection is just like, I just take everything, it's fine.
Right.
Okay. So I feel like this is not an auto include where Insurrection is just like, oh, you want to win the game, just Insurrection. This one is like you have to think about it.
I like that part of it. Yeah,
Tomer's underselling his card. This is definitely a you win the game. So I played it in the Fast and Furious deck because it was all vehicles. So I'm like, haha, synergies, right? I have no creatures and I can take it, crew my vehicles, and win my way. But it definitely is just a win the game. And if we saw it every week, it would get old really quick and it would follow the same suit as Insurrection because even if you have a crazy board, let's say you have a fill board, okay? it doesn't matter, right? Because I swap my board with Tomer, and then I swing at Seth. You know what I mean? It's not like a reciprocal trade, right? And then Seth can choose how to utterly destroy Tomer's board in combat. You know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, let me double block your commander here. Let me do this. Let me do that. Right? Like, there's all kinds of weird gotchas, and like the ceiling is like, or sorry, the floor is like etherized or something, right? Like some attacks you just fog with this, right? But in reality, you're just gonna take like Phil's like crazy board that Seth was trying to dodge attacking and use it to block whatever's coming at you. Just annihilate someone. So this is like
you could also
insane,
surprise
right?
block. Like somebody swings in at you, and you could steal somebody else's board to block with those creatures.
I think that was the intent of this card, right?
Yeah.
Like to get the surprise block, and then because you're controlling all of this, you can control like what creatures get removed. Like someone is walking away, like utterly removed from the game, and you get to choose, right? So this is like
I got a question.
insurrection levels. Like once we see it enough, I think we'll just all be bored of it and move on, and we'll save it for like the synergy decks. But you know what? In the synergy decks, it gets much worse, right? That means you can absolutely abuse this in your synergy decks as well, right? So this is an insanely OP old card.
Like we keep winning off T-Pro, but we still run T-Pro.
Talk
because
about
you're actually going to show your
what
win
if you phase out the
right?
board? What if you steal something and phase out your board? Do you just keep everything?
What?
That's. I mean, if I play this and then clever concealment, do I keep your board?
I can't imagine it works that way, but maybe.
Because then I'm
so maybe if you blink. So normally phasing doesn't work, right? But maybe if you blink, you can keep everything.
Yeah, if it's a
no, because it usually most blink says return it under owner's control.
Yeah,
but some of them say like Thassa do.
So creatures apparently phase in on their owner's turn, I believe.
Boring.
So I don't think you get to steal all your opponent's creatures forever with it.
Okay. Just worth
so
shot.
Tomer, yes, I'm sold on this card being way better than the amount of play that it sees. 100%. But I still don't know if I'm going to start playing it because it just, like I said, I don't really like winning with insurrection effects. So I don't know if I'm going to play it in a ton of decks. But I think you're 100% right that this card is way more powerful compared to like whatever percent of decks actually play it. Like it's way better than that.
I like it with synergies. Like if you play an altar or a sack outlet, even if you just play a Wanderer to give the stuff flying or something, like as soon as you have some synergy, I like it. I also like it anyways. I think it plays way more flexible than an insurrection. Like the instant speed and stuff, and you feel like you have way more control.
So insurrection, there's no brain cells needed. You just cast it and you go. At least this one, you need to like think and plan and do something useful. Like I know when I tried to lethal Tomer, I was like 2 damage short or something, and I couldn't cast a creature because I would give it to him and he would have a blocker or whatever. So like you had to like actually like work through it and like think how to actually get it done. So it does have more play, but I think it is insanely powerful. Like it's so flexible, it can do so much. You can think of it as a wrath. You know, if there's like a problem, like you just take the board and then attack into someone that will just cleanly block everything and destroy it, and then you're done, right? Like, so you can do everything with this card. I'm surprised it's a commander card. Like, if I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this was clearly a card made in like the 90s where it was meant for 1v1. Right? But in Commander, it's absolutely cracked, and they made it in a Commander precon, so they knew what they were doing. So
no, they
I'm
made it in
surprised.
Stronghold.
No, is it?
Very old.
It's a reprint.
That was a niche one, yeah.
Oh, so that makes more sense to me, right? It's like, it's like, I don't know, Secret Rendezvous or Trade Routes or whatever. It's meant for 1v1, and it's kind of mediocre, but in multiplayer, it's like insanely broken. So that's Reigns of Power. It's $1.50. It's like free.
Yeah.
I'm sold. I'm giving you my entire company, Tomer. I'm investing everything.
but so good
I
it's
just
bad
always
because
forget
it's
about this
boring.
card. But
I mean, I think it is.
I like
I actually think it is
it's
so good it's
exciting.
boring.
I thought when Richard did that, I was like, oh my god, this card is so cool. I have it in a couple Commander decks already, but now I want to try it more.
I feel like
same.
It's exciting the first like 3 times, but then the 4th and 5th time, you're kind of like, kind of like Insurrection.
Right?
I
Like
think
the
Insurrection
Fairies
is kind of
Pro.
exciting the first. Well, no, Fairies Pro sucks. That is the least. I hate that card. It's the least climatic way to win a game.
Untap
we
and
keep
you get
running
to play your cards and win your cards with T-Pro, right? This one, you're kind of just winning with whatever the heck's on the board that wasn't part of your strategy, right? So
No,
that's
it's
like
like,
insurrection
we
problem.
wanted to kill the T-Pro player, but he's immune to everything for an entire turn cycle until it's back to his turn. Wow, so excited. Oh, then you beat me with whatever. Oh, so it's so cool.
Mhm.
Yeah,
How
then you died to
novel.
Zubera or something. You're like,
How
cool,
novel.
you know? As
Oh my
opposed
God.
to Raids of Power, where you just die to whatever random garbage is on.
So if I do something like Psych Rift loop you, but then I win with Zubera, you're like, oh wow, that was so interesting. No, it's
That's
the
better than
process that gets
insurrection,
there.
no?
Yeah, better.
It's the process that gets there. I think it's equally meh.
Are you trying to unsell Raids of Power? I was all in Dover.
No, I
Tomer's
think
talking us out of this.
I think it's more exciting than a T-Pro.
You're like,
or
it's way
whatever.
worse than you think it is, Richard. What?
No, it's very good. Okay,
All
fine.
right. Well, all of our card choices are super cheap this week. Like everything. Like the max price is like $1.50 or something. So
I think it's because if it was a good card, it would be more expensive. People would be like,
Oh, hey,
like, oh, I have
whoa,
this,
Thwart.
no, but it's like I have this hot tech. It's called the One Ring. It's like, yeah, I got it. A $50 card.
Secret Rendezvous still heavily undervalued by the market. We're waiting for MTG Finance to
it's
catch
true.
up.
We just need a
good.
old border foil, and then it'll really take off.
Ooh.
I mean, the trick is to take super conditional looking cards and make them not conditional, right? If it had no condition on it, like the One Ring, then everyone can obviously see its power, and then everyone will buy it. It'll be super expensive, and Wizards will print it at Mythic. But if you have like weird conditions and you know how to get around those conditions, everyone else undervalues it, including Wizards. They put it at common and uncommon or whatever, right? And then you have insanely powerful cards that are super cheap.
That's the secret to building on a budget. That's how you
Yep.
make a budget deck like that's good. Is you find like the conditional stuff and then
Yeah.
you break
and
it.
the one condition is synergy with your commander, right? That's an obvious
Oh,
one.
yeah.
But then you can also find synergies with just random other stuff that doesn't have to do with your commander as well. All right. Sharks. We've done it. We've used up all our money. I don't know where it went, but we've invested, and we're very clearly going to get a payback from this. I fully expect to see Mitotic Manipulation,
Thwarts?
Fruition.
Wait,
Not this
the
one.
Thwart, Mitotic
Oh,
Manipulation,
yep.
Volatile Stormdrake, Reigns of Power decks are gonna come.
Yeah,
Mono
I mean,
blue.
they're
It'll
all
be the
blue,
reign of
right?
mono blue.
Blue
Yeah,
was
a lot of blue
Yeah.
cards.
today, yeah.
Yeah.
Not ironically, that deck would be pretty good.
That actually
Yeah.
does look like it could be a deck.
Yes, it sounds
Reigns of
very
Power
good.
with Thwart backup? How do you lose?
I'm not even joking. This sounds like the start of an excellent
Yeah,
deck.
but then your opponent Fruition, Richard, and you're done. You can't beat
It's
that.
okay. You took
You're
their
cooked.
commander and dealt 21 Ultron damage.
Yes, that's-
And then you cleansing Wildfire your land for some reason, and we did
Hell
it.
You,
yeah.
you cleansing Wildfire their Mazavith and then hit them with the 21
Whoa.
commander damage.
Yes,
and
there
then bada
we
boom.
go.
Oh wait, you turn off their Fruition by cleansing Wildfire.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah,
Big
that's
boy.
right. Look at that. We got a whole metagame here. All right. So that's all the time we have for Shark Tank this week. Thank you everyone for joining in. Let us know if we've missed anything, any synergies or cool things that go along with the cards we talked about. Let us know if you want to pitch us something. And we'll see y'all back here next week.